Submission Radio here with legendary Coach Eric Nicksick, repping Extreme Couture down here in a massive main event rematch. Sean Strickland versus DDP, and man, this could be a chess match in the park because this strategy going into this one is going to be very, very interesting. What do you make of going into a fight where commentators, media people, fighters, people that have been a part of the sport for a really long time keep going back and forth and can't even really decide who won that first fight? How does that feel going into a rematch?
I mean, it could be a trap, to be honest with you, because I think if you dwell so much on the past, that fight's long gone. Yeah. You know, we've seen DDP fight since then. He took out Israel Adesanya. We've seen Sean fight since then, and to me, it's like that fight is now irrelevant. I just, you know, like there's a lot of good things you can take from it, but you can't also hang your hat on thinking like that's the end all be all. We don't have to make any adjustments. So for me, I just kind of use that information that we have, move on, and start a whole new game plan.
Yeah, I just want to go back to that first fight just for a second because it was interesting. We got to see some of the corner footage from both of you guys. Sure. You know, DDP said in that first round, like the strategy just wasn't working for him. He was copying really good jabs from Sean, and he was starting to feel them, so he had to be a little bit more active. When you look back on the footage though, and Sean sort of, because he kind of compared himself like a scalper when it comes to a striking style.
Yeah, 100%.
He saw the gaps and he was sort of capitalizing on them throughout the fight. But at the same time, DDP was still using that as a way to move him backwards. Those moments where he was sort of picking him apart when he was coming in, the judges saw as a situation where DDP's forward movement, and even though DDP wasn't landing, his output was to them winning some of those rounds. When you look back on that, is there anything specifically about some of those exchanges where you're like, man, I wish we gave up some of those moments where we were sort of outlanding DDP and making it look like we were moving forward a little bit more, cutting a few more angles and sort of not letting him push us back like that?
Yes and no, but I think a lot of that has to do with the audio effect it has as well. Like DDP's throwing lumber. Yeah. And even like when you're hearing those punches getting blocked off the guard, it sounds like it's a lot worse than what it is, right? Like, so when you hear us say optics, there's your visual, but there's also a side of it when you're hearing it, right? That can affect that. So for us, I just think we need to add a little bit more scoring criteria, things that for the judges to be able to see. That's going to help us a bunch. But you know, in my mind, yes, like when you see that sort of forward pressure, aesthetically you're like, oh, this guy's doing more. When he's, you know, maybe he's really not. Like we've seen the numbers show Sean did more in that fight. But again, it's all about what the judge perceives, and that's what we have to kind of change up.
Well, DDP said he thought your strategy was for Sean to go light in the first couple of rounds and then try to drown him towards the end of the fight. How accurate was he when it came to that initial game plan?
Well, it's not far off. I think that game plan is very similar to any Sean Strickland fight. Like Sean Strickland is a 5-round fighter. That's where he fares his best. Yeah. So when we have that type of strategy, yes, there's a cardio element to it too, but there's also a product placement with our strikes that we need to get better at to try to implement. We always say flatten the tires, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, that is part of the game plan, but there's more to it that we have to be better at in this fight.
It's fascinating here as well because you guys have fought DDP for 5 rounds. That's a bit rare, right? Going into a rematch with someone that you've been in the ring with for 5 rounds with. So does that change the perspective a little bit for you guys in terms of the experience of being in there? Because one of the things about DDP is the fact that his style is so strange in so many ways that even though what you see on tape, you're kind of got to go in there to experience it. Does that change things now for you guys going into this rematch?
I wouldn't say it changes much of anything, but like you nailed it on the head. Like DDP is very hard to get a rhythm on, right? But so is Sean. But the only way like you see guys have better success with Sean is when they spar him more and they train with him more. Yeah. And DDP reminds me of somebody like that as well. So both of these guys need to mind their P's and Q's and not think like, oh, this guy was too slow or this guy, you know, can't touch me or whatever it may be. Because once you kind of get a rhythm of them and a feel of them, I think that's when I think this fight's going to be a lot. I would say like more of a barn burner. Like these guys are going to know each other a little bit more.
Obviously, it's you. You got Pereira in the corner for this one. You know, some people have been like, well, Pereira can't really speak English that much, but the thing is, it's not really about the stuff that he says.
Sure.
It's that minute little stuff in between the rounds, the little things that he picks up that's going to be a help. Break that down for us. What does he add to the con? Obviously, he's got a great mind.
Well, I think people forget that like the third and the fourth in the corner aren't really there to do a whole lot of anything. They're just more there for support. And the main thing for us is having Alex in the back for like a good warm up. He's one of the best in the world. Like, why wouldn't you want the guy in the corner? Yeah. I've already had him in the corner once before. I really enjoyed having him in the corner, and I liked his insight. He's not there to scream and yell.
What kind of stuff was he doing, for example?
Just he was talking to me about some of the technical things that and he just whispered in my ear, "Hey, get him on this a little bit more."
Yeah.
I understand what he's saying. It's not. He knows how to say jab. He knows how to say teep, right? And chama.
Yeah.
No, but there were some things in the first fight that he was saying, hey, he's got to get back to this or do a little bit more of this.
Yeah.
And then we're articulating that to Sean. So having him there is like a lot of times just having your brother in the corner or a family member or something like that. There's a comfort level that Sean has with Alex, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. It's interesting because I saw Sean Strickland was inviting Israel Adesanya to come to the gym with you guys, to train with you guys. And this whole Alex Pereira thing, I love it because usually you see someone go through adversity and lose in a fight like with an Alex Pereira and then go on to have like, not a beef, but like a resentment towards them for the rest of their career. Like we've seen it so many times. Dan Henderson and Michael Bisping, for example, like a lot of this. What you guys did was both you, your team, and Alex and his team, you guys have kind of used that situation as a way to come together, train together. 100%. But then wouldn't you also say that both of you guys have been better for it? Like the training that he gets with Sean translates into his 205 run, and the stuff that you're learning from him and the experience of working with him for Sean translates into this new potential title run that happens this week.
Couldn't agree with you more, Dennis. And I think it's a testament to the fact that these guys can put their egos aside, and at the end they're competitors, but once the fight's over, it's nothing but love and respect.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that, like, I remember when Sean told me, he goes, hey, Alex had reached out about me coming out there to train. I'm like, dude, you got to take advantage of that. You got to go.
Were you guys umming and eyeing about it, or like was it a hard decision to make?
Not even close. It wasn't like Sean was even asking me. He's just like, hey, I got an invite to go, and I was like, you should go, bro. That's amazing. Like, you get to learn and train with and be around one of the best guys in the world, regardless if he beats you in a fight or not. But this is what I love so much about Joaquin Buckley. Buckley came and trained with us for 2 camps, ended up fighting Alex Duraev, right, out of our gym, beat him, and then got booked to fight Chris Curtis, and Chris beat Joaquin. Yeah. Joaquin calls me after and says, hey, coach, is it cool if I come back and train at the gym? There was no hard feelings. And guess who his rounds were with the whole entire time? Chris Curtis.
Oh, wow.
Right? Like when Joaquin came back, he was training with Chris the whole time. Yeah. So I love when you hear and see a guy like Joaquin Buckley and now see where he's at in the welterweight division. Made a great decision, and I think that just you put that ego aside for the betterment of your career. Guys are well better off for it.
Yeah, it's going to be a close fight. It's going to be hard to predict this one. It's really going to come down to a lot of things. But let's say down the track, DDP does move up to light heavyweight and does fight an Alex Pereira, for example, if he's still around. How do you see that fight going between those two? Because it's a fascinating matchup of two very contrasting
really is,
styles.
Man. It really is. I think what makes Dricus so good is his unpredictability in the striking. Yeah. Whereas Alex is used to clean, efficient style of striking where the awkwardness can throw guys that are that good off, like that clean. So I think if Dricus kind of stays, he's not going to rewrite the change his entire approach or anything like that, but I think because he's starting to understand more and more of what he's trying to create with his own striking, he's coming into his own. I think he can cause some problems, The biggest thing that I think that makes Alex so great is that, like, in the Yuri fights, Yuri tends to leave his defense behind him. Yeah. So he's throwing things and there's holes in his defense, and Alex can diagnose that very fast. Yeah. Dricus kind of has a little bit of that too within his offense. Is if he leaves a hole there, a guy like Alex Pereira can snipe you, he can sharpshoot you.
Yeah, it's an interesting division right now. If you guys do walk away with the belt, there are a couple of names floating around. First up, I want to get your thoughts. What have you made of Belal Muhammad sort of trying to call out Sean Strickland and sort of building this rivalry.
Sure.
He spoke to me, he said that maybe in a defense or two he wants to come up to the middleweight division, fight Sean. How do you think a Belal Muhammad would do moving up to middleweight and, for example, challenging Sean if he was the champ?
I mean, Belal is a champion. I know him very well, work with him, love and respect him. I think that a guy that wants to compete and move up and challenge himself, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
You know, I really am. I'm all for it. And then there's a hatred between the two, right?
Yeah.
So automatically it's going to have eyes on it. So yeah, if all this goes as planned and Belal wants to move up, more power to him. And you know,
you think he can translate with his size what he does well at welterweight to middleweight? Because it is a step up in size, and obviously he's able to dominate people with his wrestling, with being able to put him up against the fence. Do you think he could still do that at middleweight?
I think it's a tough ask, but I think knowing Belal and knowing his coaching staff and how good Belal is, I think anything's possible when it comes to Belal.
Another person associated with Belal, a man who trains with him, Islam Makhachev, recently said he wants to be a 3-division champion.
Wow.
Did you see that, by the way?
Yeah.
I mean, poor Islam, I think he just really wants to get up from lightweight, but he's in a tricky situation because he's mates with Belal, so maybe they're like, hey, maybe we'll go to middleweight first. I don't know what the deal is because he's only got a couple of years left in his career before he retires, but how would Islam translate to middleweight, in your opinion?
Middleweight, I mean, I think that's a big jump. I think it's a big jump. I think, you know, one step at a time, right? I get that Belal and Islam are training partners and they're friends, but I feel like there's a reason why the Islam camp has been kind of throwing that out there a little bit more and more to make people, you know, hey, it's not personal.
Yeah.
They're competitors. So at that point, if you're going to move up to welterweight and try your luck there. And I don't really care if you're friends or not. Like, it's for the belt.
Yeah.
It's for your legacy. Go fight. Figure it out.
Let me ask you this, man. A man that's trained with you is, before at Extreme Couture, is Khamzat Chimaev.
Yeah.
He's going to be here in the next couple of days doing some seminars, so you guys all run into him. What have you made of this sort of rift between him and Sean? Because they were pretty friendly before. He went to the press conference. Sean went to the press conference yesterday. He made his thoughts clear on Khamzat. He kind of held court. He made his thoughts clear on a number of things. Everyone got demonetized. What do you make of this rivalry that's building between the two, though?
I mean, you know, in a lot of ways, is like I get it, because if that's the fight they're gonna make, if Sean wins, then you're trying to build this like next thing and the next, like, you know, rivalry, if you will. But
do you think that's all that is, though?
I don't know, man. Like, these guys got along just fine in the gym, right? Like, so I know Khamzat, you know, threw some strays at Sean a while back, and then that's kind of been going back and forth and one of those things, man. I love Khamzat. I got nothing but love and respect for him. You know, it is what it is. I hate to see that kind of that back and forth, because they did spend so much time on the mats together.
Yeah.
But you know, you're kind of building this rivalry, if you will, and if they end up fighting, there's bad blood there, then it's only going to make for more views.
It's interesting though, right? Because Khamzat, he's still fairly new to your division. He fought Robert Whittaker and impressively beat him, right?
Smoked him.
Sean Strickland sort of labeled Rob in that performance like a little bit of a can. He's like, in a couple of comments that he's made, he said that basically when it comes to Khamzat, he's not sold on this sort of hype that he's gotten from a lot of the fans. What is your perspective on Khamzat in middleweight? How dangerous do you think he is?
Yeah,
people saying this is one of the toughest matchups for anybody in the division.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, he's fucking good. He's as advertised, you know. And I think Robert Whittaker is not even like really out of his prime. You know, I think it was just, to me, you know, maybe a little off night for Rob, but I think Khamzat is that good. Yeah. And I also don't take anything away from Rob, man. Like, I think Rob is always going to be a competitor in the middleweight division, you know. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know half the shit that Sean says anyway.
Let me ask you this. Obviously, Imavov had an impressive win over Israel. He's saying he wants the belt next. Sure. We've got Khamzat here on the weekend. He wants the belt next. If it was up to you, not the UFC deciding, and you guys do win this title, out of those two, who would you prefer to defend first?
Oh, Khamzat. Khamzat deserves it. I think he's the boogeyman in the division. You know, like, he's the guy that, like, oh, dude, this is going to be a fucking tough matchup, a tough game plan. And he's earned that right. So definitely Khamzat. I think Imanov's doing a great job. You know, we obviously beat Imanov in the past, but that doesn't really count. But I think Kaio and Imanov make the most sense.
That's a great fight.
And that's a kind of a title eliminator, if you will. And then the winner out of Sean and Dricus should be fighting Khamzat next.
Yeah, love it. Before we wrap up, just want to get your thoughts on another legend in Israel Adesanya. Obviously, 3rd loss in a row. You guys beat him in Sydney in that crazy title win. What was your reaction when you saw the way that fight unfolded? Obviously, you had success at the start of this fight.
I was bummed, man. Like, I'm just a big fan of Israel. I love watching them. I make a lot of, I recommend a lot of my younger fighters. Mansour right now is one in particular. I want Mansour to watch Israel, and it was more about like understanding what he's trying to set up, his feint game, and a lot of these things. So when I watched him on the Imavov fight, I thought he looked amazing. I thought he was looking good, and same in the DDP fight. I remember he looked great, man, and I was like, oh, this is the guy that we all know and love. It's just unfortunate, man, because this is the game, right? He made a big mistake in that fight that costed him. He stance switched forward without really any offense, and Imavov was able to take that space away and reacted brilliantly with that overhand. It's a game of inches in this sport, and it's unfortunate because you can be doing everything right all the way up to the last second, and then you have a Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman moment. You know what I mean? So I hope he takes a little time off. I hope that we do see him back because the sport's better with Israel in it, man. Yeah,
for sure. Do you think it's a situation of an eventual decline that most champions have? Or is it just a situation where there's so much tape on the guy, he's been so successful for so long, that the competition is able to look through the tape, see the gaps and the openings like you mentioned, and capitalize, and maybe that divide that was there once when he was champion is now decreased, much like with Anderson Silva and a lot of these other dominant champions?
I think that's a great point. I remember breaking him down and seeing some same tendencies that have gone on in the past. So it was a little predictable.
Yeah, when Sean knocked him down in Sydney, it wasn't the same situation, but there was a mistake made that you guys capitalized on with that shot.
Yeah, that was something that Danny, we all worked on quite a bit, was that fade check hook. Yeah. We're able to beat that down the middle with the cross. Sean was, not we. Sean was able to read it and do it in the right moment. But yeah, I think over time there's going to be a lot of tape coming out. You might stay with the same tendencies that you do for a long time because it's worked for you for a long time. But I also think there's a part of it of like a confidence factor when it comes to the opponent. So when Sean fought him, you guys heard me talking about like, don't get snake charmed by him because you get mesmerized by the person in front of you. Yeah. You get it. There's a moment where you're like, oh shit, I'm fighting Israel Adesanya, right? And now guys are not really respecting the person that's in front of them. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing is like, oh, if Sean can beat him, I can beat him. That like 4-minute mile mentality. The guy that broke the 4-minute mile. It's like, oh, if he can do it, then I can do it. Sort of mentality. So
he's the one that made it possible.
He's the one that made it possible. Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of that too.
Final question, if Sean wins the title here in Sydney, what will this mean to you compared to that crazy first title win against Israel? Obviously, we don't see many people come back and regain the title. Sure. What will this one mean to you if you guys can get it done?
They all mean so much. They all mean so much, and it's like your kids, right? Like you love them all in different ways, and this one's different, and it's important in regards of, we want this one back bad, right? Like, it wasn't a wash. You didn't get your ass kicked, but you made some mistakes, and I think that side of us as competitors want to go get that one back. And Dricus is on his. He's not on his way up. He's the champion, and he's only getting better. So I just predict like seeing these two guys in this chess match. But for us, we just have to just capitalize a little bit more on some of the things that we did well. Add some new tools, make it look a little bit prettier. And I know Dricus is going to be coming out trying to take our fucking hat off.
Well, dude, I can't wait to see it. Congratulations on everything that you've accomplished. It's going to be another chapter and a great run for you guys this coming weekend. And hey, Sean hasn't punched any fans either, so things are working. Still early, but things are going to plan. Eric Nicksick, what an honor, man.
Pleasure.